to the Cyber Chronicles. My name is Brian Stevenson, and I am your host. We scrub the internet so you don't have to. This week we got an exciting episode ending in June 8th, 2019. Hard to believe it's 2019 already. We're going to talk about quite a few things. Microsoft mandatory password changing is ancient and obsolete. A lot of people are starting to pick up on this article. Apple relieved a patch on a modem bug that was prevalent since 1999. Probably so a lot of people you out there listening who were born. Unpatched bug allows attackers to bypass Windows lock screen. Google announced a backdoor on some of its Android devices. And we're going to talk about the thing that everyone's been talking about this week, Quest Diagnostics data breach and what the impact of that is. So let's get started. Okay, our first article comes to us by ARS Technica. If you don't watch their website, you should. It's a great website. They've got a lot of great information on there. And they're one of the few people that put out original content out there week after week after week, and you need to support them. That being said, Microsoft says mandatory password changing is ancient and obsolete, bucking a major trend. The company speaks out against an age-old practice. This would have saved me a lot of gray hairs and a lot of heartache a lot of years ago, because I've always had a hard time remembering passwords until I used a password tool to save all of them, which is by definition also somewhat dangerous. So researchers came to the consensus the best passwords are at least 11 characters long, randomly generated, and use upper and lower case letters and symbols, which make them especially hard for people to remember. So when IT departments make it mandatory to replace your password every 30, 60, 90 days, and these passwords are that complicated, invariably what happens is people write them down on Post-it notes, they put them on their monitors, they put them on underneath their mouse pads, and things like that. So Microsoft finally came to the conclusion that it's better to have a very robust password, one that you can remember, and not have it written down and not changed every 30, 60, 90 days. So that was our first article. Let's move on. Okay, our next article comes to us from Wired Magazine. Apple just patched a modem bug that's been in Mac since 1999. That's a long time. So in 99, Apple released a slew of new features for the Mac OS 9, calling it the best internet operating system ever. Interesting. Internet operating system. The Internet Mac, released in 1998. But 12-year-old Joshua Hill didn't have an iMac, so to take advantage of the new functionality or connectivity from the modem, he would plug his computer through a series of clunky serial ports, if people can remember those days. 56K modem. He traded a friend a Hans Solo trading card for a 56K modem and started poking around to see what he could figure out. At 12 years old, he's now a vulnerability researcher, surprise, surprise, and presented the bug as a 20-year-old bug at the Objective by the Sea Mac Security Conference on Sunday. The flaw could have potentially been exploited by an attacker to get persistent remote root access of any Mac, which essentially means full access to your computer. So it's not really a scary bug. It's just interesting that this gentleman, at 12 years old, he's already poking around like a lot of us probably did, ripping PCs apart, trying to figure out how these things work. So interesting article, and as always, Wired Magazine goes very in depth as to what happened. So that's our next article. Let's move on. Okay, our next article comes to us from the Hacker News. Unpatched bug lets attackers bypass Windows lock screen on RDP sessions. So researcher, and I'm always amazed at Hacker News. So they actually scan the CVE reports, the vulnerability reports that are announced to the public or announced to the community when a vulnerability is found, so people can patch that hole. So they actually scan those and write articles about them. There's probably other places that do, but they're the most prevalent that I can find. Discovered by research at Carnegie Mellon University Software Institute, a flaw exists between Microsoft's Windows Remote Desktop allows clients to authenticate network-level authentication NLA, a feature that Microsoft recently recommended as a workaround against the Blue Keep RDP vulnerability. Anomaly triggers a temporary RDP disconnect while the client was already connected to the server, but the login screen is locked, and then upon reconnection, the RDP session will be restored into an unlocked state regardless of how the remote system was left. So obviously that's a problem. Two-factor authentication systems that integrate with Windows login screens, such as Dual Security MFA, are also bypassed using this mechanism. Any login banners forced by an organization will also be bypassed. And then he shows a proof of concept here, a video that apparently he uploaded on our favorite YouTube. So great article. Look at it. If you're running Microsoft Windows, you probably want to do an update on that. Well, you always want to do updates on every software that comes out. But let's move on to our next exciting article. Okay, our next article comes to us. Google confirms that Advanced Backdoor came with pre-installed Android devices. Shame, shame, shame. After Google discovered that it beat back Triada in 2017. Of course, I'm pronouncing that incorrectly because I can't pronounce anything correctly. It was an article, it was published by Kaspersky, by the way. First, it said the malware had one of the most advanced mobile Trojans that they'd ever seen. Once installed, Triada's chief purpose was to install apps that could be used to send spam and display ads. Employed an impressive kit of tools, including routing exploits that bypasses security protections into the Android device. So, security firm Dr. Web reported that researchers found Triada built into firmware into several Android devices, including the Lego M5 Plus, Lego M8, Noma S10, and Noma S20. The attackers used the backdoor to serendipitously download and install modules because the backdoor was embedded into one of the OS libraries located in the system section, and it could not be deleted using standard methods. So on Thursday, Google did confirm the report, and it stopped short of naming the manufacturers, but it did say that the supply chain attack was pulled off by one or more partners the manufacturers used in preparing the final firmware image used in the affected devices. So that's bad. So anyway, if you're using an Android device, you probably want to read this article. It doesn't really give you a to-do here as far as fixing this or not, but it was just on some Android device. Well, just on. It was on Android devices in 2017, and you kids with phones nowadays, I mean, if it's more than 2 months old, you're already getting a new one. So let's move on to our top article. Okay, our top article, it was the first page of everything that was shared across the internet was about this Quest Diagnostics, because I think all of us have used Quest Diagnostics at some point for a pre-hiring screen, or just your physician will send you there for drug and lab work. So it's the world's largest lab testing company, and it had a data breach of 12 million patients. May have been exposed. It doesn't say it has, it just says may. Information, including financial information, social security numbers, and medical records. The company said lab results were not exposed. The breach occurred through a contractor of a contractor, supply chain again. This is why if you're a large company, you got to make sure that the people you're working with have tight security controls, because this is what seems to happen. And then you got a mega company like Quest having to go out and take it on the chin. So a contractor of a contractor, Quest outsources its billing collections to Optum360, which in turn used American Medical Collection Agency for its services. American Medical Collection Agency, or AMCA, told Quest on May 14th it suffered a possible incident, and it's unclear exactly when the hack may have occurred. Detailed and complete information of the data incident, including which individuals have been affected, is forthcoming. And they're working with forensic experts to investigate that the matter. So I can tell you who they're probably using there, and if you're not, you should call us. But they're probably using Mandiant, because if you're not using the best, on forensics. Good luck. And so anyway, for the Quest Diagnostics, it came out and had to publicly tell people that there's a possibility that 12 million of its users' data is been compromised. Of course, putting fear into everybody, wondering if this information could be out there. And there's nothing to be said that it actually has been out there yet. It just is a possibility. So the laws that are occurring on data breach are very good, but they're also perhaps putting a little bit of scare into people when it's unnecessary, because there's no confirmation of a data breach here. I'm screwing around with some stuff. Anyway, that's it for this week on the Cyber Chronicles. As always, thank you so much for listening. Hit the subscribe button if you've not done so before. Every week we talk about the top articles discussed on the internet as you share them through LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and such. As always, take care and be safe.